fishermen hit the streets, from Maine to Texas, every single port will lock down.
What happens if our seaports go on strike? The strike is set for October 1st, so you better share this with everyone. Because if our ports close, everything we depend on closes with it. Let's talk about what would happen within the month of October. On day one, international fuel shipments are the first to feel the impact. Crude oil tankers stuck offshore means no new fuel entering refineries. By the end of the day, concerns spread across industries as gas stations, trucking companies, and airlines brace for immediate shortages. Everything from fuel to imported goods is at risk, but fuel becomes the most critical loss. By day 3, gas stations are starting to run dry and rationing begins. Prices surge as demand skyrockets. Without fuel, trucks can't deliver goods, and the first shortages show up in grocery stores. Businesses relying on imported oil, like refineries, scramble to maintain operations with whatever reserves they have left. The ripple effect starts to hit home. No fuel means no transportation, and without transportation, the flow of goods stop. Day 7, the energy crisis takes hold. Within the first week, the impact of fuel shortage deepens. Trucks, trains, and ships that move essential supplies across the country slow to a halt. Agriculture and manufacturing are crippled, unable to operate without fuel for machinery and transportation. Airlines begin canceling flights, and public transportation services are cut. Gas prices hit all-time highs as panic buying intensifies. By week 2, the power grid struggles and collapse looms. Power plants that rely on imported fuel start to struggle, and blackouts spread as they ration what's left. People begin hoarding fuel, and chaos erupts at the pumps. The stock market plummets as industries reliant on global supply chains begin to crumble. The economy falters, and unemployment skyrockets as factories close and businesses shutter. By week 4, total breakdown of society. By the end of the month, the energy crisis and fuel shortages bring society to its knees. Cities erupt into fuel riots, and law enforcement is overwhelmed. With no fuel, food distribution collapses, and starvation becomes a real threat. Communities are left to fend for themselves as fuel reserves dry up completely, leaving transportation, emergency services, and the economy in ruins. Without ports, crude oil can't get in. Without crude oil, fuel can't be made. Without fuel, everything grinds to a halt. When the fuel stops, America stops. And just so we're clear, this could all happen within the month of October.
As we approach the deadline for a possible strike at the East Coast and Gulf Coast ports at midnight on Monday. The International Longshoreman Association has said they will strike if the port operators known as the USMX do not offer what they want when it comes to compensation and restrictions on the use of automation. Yesterday, USMX filed an unfair labor practice complaint with the National Labor Relations Board claiming the union refuses to negotiate. That's a claim that the ILA denies. East and Gulf Coast ports, they move more than $2 billion in goods every single day. We spoke with C.H. Robinson, one of the biggest movers of freight from Asia to the U.S. They estimate that companies can still realistically expect to get imports and other freight from East and Gulf Coast ports for just another day, maybe even beyond that. But after that, they say it's really time to look for alternative routes.
If you've got goods from Europe you need for the holiday season, you're going to want to look at alternatives. Maybe come through Canada, the Canadian Gateway, maybe come through a non-ILA port on the East Coast. There are a couple of small niche ports that fall into that category. You have air freight as an option.
I've spoken to a number of companies, and they say creating that alternative routing, it comes at a premium. Some saying contract rates double if freight moves from East or Gulf Coast ports to the West Coast. There's also expected to be a cost to the U.S. economy. The National Association of Manufacturers says 2/3 of exports and more than half of imports of containers move through these ports. The auto, pharmaceutical, and aerospace industries, they're expected to see some of the biggest impacts. Joining me now to discuss is the president and CEO of the National Association of Manufacturers, Jay Timmons. Jay, thanks for joining us. Good morning.
Good morning.
All right, Jay, let's just talk about it. Your group, the National Association of Manufacturers, you have a lot of big name companies in there. I'm just looking at the list. I see Pfizer, I see Winnebago, Johnson & Johnson. I mean, such a broad range of companies. What's the impact to these companies if we do see this strike?
Well, it's going to be a pretty heavy hit, to be quite honest about it. Look, I mean, we are kind of on tenuous ground right now economically. Manufacturers have begun to emerge from the impact of the pandemic, the supply chain shortages and crises that we've dealt with. Interest rates are starting to now ease off a little bit. So today, we have the opportunity, I think, to move forward, to ensure that our economy is moving up and getting better. and that workers are, in a good place. But unfortunately, this strike, I think, could really harm consumers. It could harm the economy overall. You noted over $2 billion of impact every single day if this happens. So we're very concerned about what's coming up potentially next week. And that's why we want the administration to get involved in this dispute.
Jay, you mentioned the administration, spoken to the White House, spoke to them at length about this. Also, the Department of Labor, they've also issued a statement. I'm talking about the White House. I want to read to you what they said in part. We encourage all parties to remain at the bargaining table and negotiate in good faith. We've never invoked Taft-Hartley to break a strike and are not considering doing so now. Taft-Hartley is something a lot of people have called on the Biden administration to do to deal with some labor disputes, not only this one, but some others in the past during President Biden's term. Do you believe that the Biden administration should intervene in that way?
Well, we still have a few days left, right? And hopefully negotiations will continue and there will not be a strike. I think that's the most important thing that can happen. Both sides come to the table, try to work something out. But if it doesn't happen, I think it's incumbent on the administration to take a hard look at invoking Taft-Hartley. That happened during the administration of George W. Bush. We haven't had a strike with these ports in over 50 years. And so the economic impact of this could be pretty consequential. And I don't think the administration, as we're just really starting to get our feet under us in the manufacturing sector, I don't think they want to see that be taken away from us.
I really want to kind of lean in on this, Jay. I mean, we showed the numbers, we're showing some of the industries, but when you say that these different companies could be hurt, exactly what do you mean? Would it make them less competitive? Would it, increase? I'm sorry, please go ahead.
Yeah, no, of course it makes them less competitive. Of course it drives up the costs. But I think you have to look at the entire impact on the economy. It's not just the businesses that are impacted. Ultimately, business will continue and we'll figure out alternatives if necessary. Yes, we can go to Canada. Yes, we can go to Mexico. Yes, we can ship into and out of this country from the West Coast, which is just think about the additional time and the additional expense that it takes to do that. But what really is impacted are the consumers of this country. Some of the biggest imports that we have coming into the East Coast are, coffee and beverages. Pharmaceuticals, one of the biggest exports, as well as the products that are needed to be a part of that pharmaceutical supply chain coming into this country. Autos, if this happens and our ability to export our products, our auto products, that harms workers in the auto industry as well. So the knock-on effect of a shutdown or of a strike really are quite damaging across the entire economy.
Jay Timmons, the president of the National Association of Manufacturers, thank you for joining us. Thank you for really spelling out some of your concerns, the concerns of your members, again, that include Johnson & Johnson, ExxonMobil, Toyota, wide range of people involved in your organization. Thank you again. And CNBC will have continuing coverage of this looming port strike all day. I'll be coming live from the Port of New York and New Jersey.
Consumer supply chain faces severe disruptions if dock workers at ports along the East and Gulf Coasts go on strike, and the deadline is quickly approaching. Investigator Tim McNicholas is in Jersey City with the details and the possible fallout.
Work at some of the busiest ports in North America could soon come to a halt. The union, which represents more than 40,000 longshoremen at 36 ports, including major hubs like Charleston, Houston, and Miami, is demanding wage increases as well as protection from job-killing automation.
I've been fighting automation for years. They destroyed L.A.
Workers are threatening to strike if a new labor agreement with shipping companies represented by the United States Maritime Alliance is not reached by October 1st.
All activity in the Port of New York and New Jersey with regards to containerized cargo and automobile cargo will cease.
Each year, more than $200 billion worth of goods, including car parts, construction materials, and produce pass through the Port of New York and New Jersey alone. That trade supports more than 500,000 local jobs.
And a 2-week strike could, cause these disruptions to feed into early 2025.
Ryan Sweet with Oxford Economics says if a deal isn't reached in time, a stoppage could disrupt more than half of U.S. shipping traffic.
This is going to be very disruptive to the U.S. economy.
This morning, a strike is looming at ports along the east and Gulf Coast that could cost the American economy billions of dollars per day and potentially lead to shortages for consumers.
A strike of this magnitude would cripple the U.S. economy.
Dock workers represented by the International Longshoremen's Association are threatening to go on strike Tuesday. The strike would affect 45,000 workers and close to 36 ports from Texas to Maine. Analysts warn a walkout lasting more than a week could lead to major supply chain disruptions. Anything imported could be delayed, including fresh produce, toys, alcohol, and vehicles and parts. Some experts warning if you need your car repaired, get to the dealership now.
If there's a prolonged strike, you could see shortages with fresh fruits and vegetables. Obviously, the automotive parts sector will be impacted.
The Port Workers Union is demanding higher wages and a ban on automated cranes, gates, and trucks. The U.S. Maritime Allowance, representing the ports, claims the union isn't bargaining in good faith.